you the Let me tell you the ancient Greek tragedy of Alberticles the Tyrant. It all started off with me spawning into a mass of meat. You see, it was once again time for another Smart Guy event, taking place over 4 hours for 7 days, with 200 players and no respawns, plus a heavier focus on RP than previous events. We were pretty damn excited, and so trapped within the starting area, I began tribing everybody up. Now for these men, equal parts triumph and tragedy lay ahead, though for now we had no clue of that. Soon after everybody had been tribed up, the main gates were open.
It's open, it's open.
The gate.
Running outside in a beautiful 20 FPS. Don't worry, that goes away in a bit. We were able to board a raft and begin sailing for our base spot. This event was taking place on a map called Mythica, basically Earth if it Pangea'd itself again a couple 100 million years in the future. And in this event, we decided to model ourselves after the Athenian Empire, one of my favorite and amongst the most shrewd ancient empires of all time, adopting the more Hellenized name of Alberticles the Tyrant. And serving as the Archon of Athens, I would seek to bring the whole map under my dominion, one way or another. Because in truth, I feel that these Smart Guy events lately have been lacking a good villain, and so today that's exactly what we would be, a great villainous empire. However, before we could form some great villainous empire, we first had to at least have a base. Landing our raft, the base spot was now within view. Bearing a decent resemblance to the Acropolis, which had served as the beating heart of the city of Athens, this spot too shall serve as the heart of our own empire. Skinning my armor to look like a classic hoplite, we began making our way to the base. Scaling the heights of the Acropolis, we found a couple creatures in our way. Before we could set up a base, these guys had to go. Having banished every foul creature from the Acropolis, and having farmed a couple resources, we now had a starter base set up, allowing the whole tribe to be outfitted with metal tools and weapons. Once this was done, we could get to the real task at hand. You see, the tribe was divided into two broad groups. The Demiurgoi, meaning something like common man, who were the vast majority of the tribe, and the Eupatrides, which meant something along the lines of noble, a smaller, much more elite subsection of the group. This group was made up entirely by those that I trusted most. You've sometimes heard me refer to them as goopers before, with both groups having a slightly different uniform. Now for the Demiurgoi, I set them up with handling the majority of setting up base, gathering resources, getting tames, and making weapons and armor. The Eupatrides, however, was sent out with a much more dangerous task, because underneath our base was a colossal cave system, inside of which could be found the dreaded Reaper Queen. You see, in this event, there was a special rule that allowed each tribe to have only 2 of any of the following tames. With our 2 special tame slots, we decided to invest in double Reapers, and so without question my Eupatrides marched down into the aberration zone. Scanning around, they eventually came across a Reaper. The frankly foul beast was lured into a trap, and arrow after arrow was flung into its thick hide. Eventually, the creature was near death, which meant 2 Eupatrides were able to move forward and get impregnated by the Reaper. Yes, literally. The equally as disgusting birthing process would happen later, but for now, while the Eupatrides had been deep underground filming the next Aliens movie, I'd continued leading the rest of the tribe and bossing up the base. When the Eupatrides returned from their mission, we were overjoyed. With 2 of our number impregnated by a Reaper, in due time, we'd have a couple formidable beasts to call our own. In the meanwhile, progress on the base remained steady. However, as day 1 began to draw to an end, a meeting had been called in the center of the map, and leaders of every tribe across the map were invited. Eager as I was to begin my villain arc, at the moment I was facing a giant problem. My swag level was too low. If you want to be a good villain, you really need to at least look kinda cool. And so I set straight away to fixing this. I gave myself a cape and then a nice black and purple dye job. Now, not only did this just kind of look cool, but in ancient times, purple had been the color of royalty, simply because of how expensive it was. Now significantly more dripped out than before, I hopped on a pterodon and started flying over to the meeting hall. Arriving, I landed and left my bird behind and headed inside accompanied by a couple bodyguards just for good measure. The meeting was basically every leader introducing himself and his nation. And when it was my turn to speak, I got my villain arc started nice and early by letting all those gathered here today know that perhaps some of them were going to be having to pay tribute to me moving forward. Returning to my seat, the meeting continued, and from here I was introduced to every group that I would need to subjugate, with the size of each group's icon denoting roughly how many members it has. Starting at the northwest, the Octan Conglomerate was a tribe focused primarily on trading. From there you had the Hollow, who were a smaller mercenary group. Living on the same mountain range as them was a group known as the Phiomia Farmers, whose name was pretty self-explanatory, as well as the Secular Front, a fairly large group that had similar intentions as me. South of that was the Norse Dwarves and Golden Order, two similarly sized tribes that were vying for regional hegemony. South of that was the Japanese team. Unsurprisingly, they were mostly isolationists. Across the bay to the east lay the Spartans. Led by a man named Kratos, I could tell that straight away there was going to be friction between us. North from there lay Blackmere, some strange undead tribe, and on an island far alone to the northeast was Bog Reapers, another strange group, this time dedicated to the worship of spiders. And then there I was. Certainly one of the larger teams, but I was far from a majority. If I was going to rule all this, I would need to play my hand very carefully. And so, as we were all gathered within the meeting hall, day one drew to a close. As day 2 began, waking up near the meeting hall, I was given the opportunity to speak to the leader of the Octan conglomeration, Farkesh. As a tribe concerned mostly with trade, there was very much so the potential for a bountiful alliance between us, and so we worked out terms. I was able to dangle the prospect of a total trade monopoly in their area of the map in my new order, in exchange for them offering me their covert support in my upcoming campaigns. An incredibly fruitful little secret alliance between us, especially one to secure so early. With both of us pleased at this arrangement, we shook on it and made our separate ways back home. Returning back home, I was very happy to see the progress that we had made on the base. Modeled after the most iconic of buildings on the Acropolis, the Parthenon, this wouldn't exactly be a super defensible or practical base, but then again, you can't exactly be the Athens team if you don't have a Parthenon. And thus, everyone began chipping in to help get this constructed as soon as possible. However, it seems that there were forces working against us. Near the outskirts of the base, hidden behind a couple shacks, one of my guys informed me that they had found a pterodon that didn't belong to us parked up.
There's a little freak here sneaking. PT from different tribe posted up at the Reaper thing.
I went over there to investigate for myself and find out how exactly this pterodon had gotten here, and soon after I saw the pterodon's owner returning.
The hell you doing, boy? What the hell?
The guy was just trying to fly away. This was a more RP focused event, so I didn't necessarily want to just slime him out immediately, but the dude just wasn't responding. And it was at this point that I noticed that the guy's pterodon was too encumbered to fly, which made me realize that he now had some stuff that he hadn't had the last time he'd landed this pterodon.
Take him alive.
This fucker was stealing from us.
Don't club him, shoot him with tranks.
Take him alive. On ping, guys, on ping.
Upon my men knocking Thing 1 unconscious, I decided to take a gander in his inventory. And what exactly had he elected to steal? Well, drawing paper. A legitimately almost completely useless item that we had only been crafting because it gives you a bunch of XP. It was as if the guy had broken into our house and only taken stuff out of our trash cans. And as he had been quickly throwing items out of his inventory to not encumber his pterodon anymore, he'd been throwing out actually useful stuff like metal armor, and then there was just 500 weight worth of fucking useless drawing paper in his inventory. However, stealing, regardless of how incompetent or frankly funny it was, could not be permitted. And so, on my orders, a simple cage was constructed and Thing 1 quickly found himself within it. Seeing this, he decided to now join our VC and make a case for why he should be released.
What's up with stealing from us?
I'm allowed to, no? I'm a tribe of one, bro. Come on.
As you might imagine, I did not find this a particularly convincing argument. I decided it would probably be best to keep him in the cage until we could figure out what to do with him. The original idea was potentially to sell him off to another tribe, but we were unable to find a willing buyer. And so for the next couple days, he just sat in that cage and also in our VC muted most of the time, and he would occasionally chime up to ask if he could be released. Granted, at first it was kind of funny, but eventually we got kind of sick of him.
Yo, can I be let out, bro? What is this?
Hey, shut up, bro.
And then ultimately what would happen later is that he would die under our care due to negligence a couple days later. I think it's because we forgot to feed him. And thus was the ignoble and frankly shameful end of the world's most incompetent thief thing won. If we're being honest, it was a death well earned. Having taken care of this guy, I was now able to return to base and look at something. Whoa, is that the Pyrosaur dinosaur deviant from which can be used scenario here that I didn't just sneak up myself? You on August or that they wouldn't turn around and eat the person they just burst out of, which they actually have a propensity to do. However, they still managed to squirm their way out of these traps somehow. So as this thing furiously crawled through the grass at our feet, we had to drop them back in the trap and close it up. But now fully encased in stone, these creatures would take a day or so before they were fully grown and usable. But as soon as that was done, Alberticles the Tyrant would have two very powerful tames under his control. And fortunately, since it was relatively early into the day, these bad boys should be just about ready come day 3. And thus, the remainder of day 2 was peacefully spent upgrading our base and gathering further gear. Day 3 began tumultuously. With our Reapers just having finished growing, they were taken into the aberration zone just underneath our base to level up. However, down there, some guy on a spider had attacked them. Although he clearly stood no chance against them, with the spider having its movement recently reworked, he was betting on the fact that the Reapers simply wouldn't be able to catch him, and so far his bet was proving true. Having by now escaped to the surface, he was primed to get away altogether. But I wasn't just gonna let this little spider freak get away. I mounted up on the fastest tame we had and gave chase.
I still see him. Reapers coming or what?
100 meters out.
I bullet it. Kill his ass.
Now bullet, he was fucked.
Killed him.
This guy called Purple Pony had belonged to the Golden Order tribe, and his death was but the first domino in a long chain of events we could not yet predict. And so anytime you hear this noise, just understand that a critical decision in the tragedy of Alberticles had been made. The Moirai, the ancient Greek weavers of fate, had set aside a very long thread for Alberticles. Although for now, we were just happy to have dealt with his interloper. Shortly after this, I met with a mysterious figure known simply as the Historian. He asked only one thing of me.
Who exactly you are and what is your story?
And so I regaled him of the tale of me and my tribe. Afterwards, he requested nothing but a saddle from one of our creatures, which I quickly gave to him. Greatly pleased, just as quickly as he had appeared, he was gone. Although a strange encounter, I was left with the faint impression that I had made a very handy friend. With this concluded, I returned to base and found that we had acquired pretty much every single tame we now needed. Our 2 Reapers were done and leveled up, and there were more than enough Rexes to go around, plus a couple other tames. And so I, accompanied by a couple of bodyguards, began flying out of base to head out on a diplomatic mission. However, as I was halfway to my destination, I received some excellent news. Mr. Flutters, one of my Eupatrides, had managed to capture the leader of the Golden Order, a man named Chernist. He'd been found near the same place that our Reapers had been attacked by his guy on a spider. Immediately turning back around, I knew an opportunity when I sensed one. I had a small shack constructed to hold him, and from there, my interrogation began.
What was this about the guy you had down in the aberration zone on the Uranium?
I did not see him. He ran the opposite direction. He did not follow my orders.
Now, what kind of band are you running over there where you have people disobeying you and attacking randoms?
What would you do if you were faced with two Reapers?
I would never have let my men get in that position in the first place.
See, these Golden Order guys were proving to be a bit of a problem. Their base was nowhere near ours, yet this is the second guy we had seen practically right outside our base. Not to mention the guy on the spider that had attacked our Reapers. However, in a more roleplay focused event, it would be frankly uncouth for us to just kill all of them. And so, falling back on ancient history, I decided to employ the use of a vassal kingdom, which essentially is an unequal alliance which allows the larger state to gain authority over the smaller one, which would essentially allow me to keep Golden Order in line, with this strategy being particularly favored by the Romans. And so, having gained plenty of influence over the Golden Order by having taken their leader alive, I proposed the following offer to Chernist. In exchange for joining the Delian League, which is the moniker I'd given to our new alliance, he would be returned safely back to his base. But alongside him, one of my trusted members by the name of Drax would also be joining his tribe in a co-leadership position. His role would be twofold. First, he would be my eyes and ears into the tribe, allowing me to basically keep an eye on them, and for the Golden Order's benefit, he would offset the loss of Purple Pony, bringing the tribe back up to their original strength. And between us, there would now be an alliance.
What is your tribe all about?
Peace and prosperity throughout all the realms.
Then I think we can work together on that.
Frankly, all things considered, these were quite generous terms. And so, Chernist agreed. The Golden Order would now fall under the organization of the Delian League. The concept that I had borrowed directly from Athenian history. With our deal agreed upon, Chernist was returned safely back to his base, Drax was added to their tribe, serving as a direct envoy to me, and after a short introduction with my new vassal kingdom,
So, say hello to your new co-leader, Drax.
we began making our way back home, our chests just a little bit fuller than before. Having secured this vassal kingdom, Alberticles the Tyrant's dominion over the map had grown significantly. Things were going just the way I needed them to. However, this was soon to change. I received the news that Kratos, the leader of the Spartans, and his co-leader Merrick were outside to speak to me.
My name is Kratos. I wish to speak to you because I hear whispers. You wish to tax people.
I would say tribute. I think tribute would be more fair.
And why would I owe you anything?
This was bad. They were here specifically to refuse my demands for tribute. If they were allowed to so publicly flaunt my authority, I'd be reduced to nothing but a laughingstock, and I could kiss any hopes of world dominion goodbye. Knowing that I couldn't refuse him, Kratos then said that if I wanted tribute, I should come to his base and grab it myself.
Well, I come here to have an understanding of what you truly want. And if it is to take, you will have to take it from our hands.
Essentially just goading me into attacking his base. Kratos was putting me between a rock and a hard place here. Were I to refuse, I would be publicly humiliated, but if I agreed to attack him, I was certain that his base would be well prepared for this. If I won that fight at all, it would be with very heavy casualties. This was a pretty decent little trick that Kratos was playing, but I had one that was even better. You see, ancient Greek states often fought out their disputes on open ground. Drawing from this example, that's exactly what I proposed to Kratos. That our two states should meet on open ground, on a spot I'd picked out very specifically, and from that field, only one team would return. Having turned his trick around on him, and with the offer seeming fair, honor-bound Kratos had no choice but to agree. And so, in an effort to lure me into a trap, Kratos had ended up walking into one himself. 1 hour into the next day, our little dispute would be solved. Although I'd managed to shake off Kratos' little gambit, we weren't exactly out of the woods just yet. I mean, we still had to fucking fight the guys. And so every member of Athens was set alight with preparations for the fight to come. As everybody checked their mounts and their equipment, I took the time to fly over and scout out the battlefield that would be. And what I saw put a little smile on my face. Turns out, I'd chosen the perfect spot. Returning back to base, I set to my own preparations. In fact, we were so engrossed with this that as day 3 drew to a close, we only just realized that Blackmere had been putting on a masquerade for the last hour of the day. Realizing that it would probably be a good idea to attend, even if there was only 20 minutes remaining, me and a couple bodyguards hopped on PTs and made our way over there. Arriving as the masquerade was just about wrapping up, we were a little bit more than fashionably late.
I'll take it then, if you would.
At this point, I felt like the kid that transfers in part of the way through the school year, and so he doesn't have anywhere to sit at lunch. And so following that example, I sort of sat in one of the back corners. But it wasn't long before my presence was noted.
Again I say, shall we all stand against them? The likes of the Athenians. They are cowards. They won't even show their face in this place.
I'm right here. What are you talking about?
So you actually showed up.
Talk all strong behind my back? What do I have to say to this man? He's pathetic.
In what way am I pathetic?
The way you sit in here blabbering on about me. Tomorrow you shall be dead and nobody will remember you.
It was clear to me now that before I'd shown up, I'd been a focal point of conversation. Kratos had very clearly been filling everyone's heads with ideas. And it was at this moment that he would say something very telling.
You want to fight dirty? I will do the same.
At that moment, the guards from Blackmere behind us drew their pikes. Before long, we were quickly surrounded by armed men. At this point, my bodyguards were practically begging me to soften my tone, but I simply refused.
A gift. I've come in here, all I've done is taken a seat, and we have this meathead over here insulting me, gossiping on about my actions. You'll see my actions tomorrow.
But you must apologize to him now for your mouth.
Apologize for what?
To our lord for the language you used and sullied his ground. I will not stand for it.
Now Blackmere was mad at me too, but I didn't exactly care. Frankly, if it came down to it, I didn't hate our odds for fighting our way out of this. However, that wasn't going to be necessary. The masquerade had run its course.
Athens, look up to me. I do like to speak to the face I am looking down upon. Is House Blackmere expected to pay tribute as well?
All are expected to pay tribute.
Expediently find yourselves from my halls. Our manor and our party is over on a sour note.
All things considered, the meeting had gone pretty well for me. True, Blackmere had very clearly already taken Kratos' side before I showed up, but none of the other tribes that were attending had stood with them. And even though I was like a little 4-foot-tall midget getting towered over by 8-foot-tall Kratos, by refusing to back down, even when surrounded by guys with their weapons drawn, I had just shown the whole server that I was very serious about my tribute collection. I'm not gonna lie, this villain shit comes pretty natural to me. Now, all I had to do was follow through with that and defeat Kratos on day 4. As day 4 began, everybody was busy with preparations for the fight. However, I would receive word that the historian was trying to speak with me. Although I had my work cut out for me trying to coordinate my team, I had the very distinct feeling that it wouldn't be wise to dismiss him. And so, near the base, I spoke to him.
You are not just fighting the Aurelians, from what I heard.
Suddenly, what Kratos had said at the meeting now made a lot more sense.
You want to fight dirty? I will do the same.
It was clear to me now that Kratos had never intended for this to be a 1v1. I was fairly confident in our odds against Sparta, but if another team were to join, I wasn't so certain. I thanked the historian for this very timely information, and just like that, he was once again gone. The historian was a strange and enigmatic figure, though certainly one I was happy to have on my side. And returning to base, I set out with changing my plan. I had to ensure that no team would intervene and assist Kratos. My first port of call was to my vassal state, the Golden Order. However, I had chosen a very awkward time to arrive to their base.
We're doing
we're
alright.
having
We're
a
still at a funeral if you wanna come in for it.
They were currently holding their funeral for Purple Pony. I don't think I could have showed up at a worse time if I tried. Although, as far as I could tell, none of them knew I was the one who had effectively personally killed Purple Pony. That certainly didn't make standing around on foot surrounded by all their tames any easier. However, all the same, it would be incredibly out of line for me to interrupt the funeral to ask something of them. And so, I had to stand around and attend the funeral for the man that I had killed. Even at the time, the irony absolutely was not lost on me. However, it doesn't take much social tact to simply stand around while a funeral happens. So for the moment, I was fine. That was, of course, until they asked me to give a couple words.
Unfortunately, I Never had the honor of meeting Purple Pony or Smeagol.
All things considered, I think I passed this pretty high-level speech check. I think there's a pretty good amount of alternate universes where I simply get surrounded and slaughtered right here because I said something wrong when giving my speech. You know, I had to drop a bunch of lines that were straight up lies, but in the end I got through it fine, and I think they even appreciated my message. This was a level of villainy straight out of a superhero movie. However, once the funeral was done, I was able to let them know their role in the upcoming events, and they agreed. Essentially, the Golden Order would act as a screening force to our north, harassing and slowing any team that tried to come down and help Kratos, which otherwise would have surrounded us. However, even with this in place, there was still one giant problem: Black Mirror. They had very clearly shown themselves to be aligned against us. They had literally stood side by side with Kratos as we had been completely surrounded by armed men. And these two parties also share the same complaints. Both were strongly against the concept of tribute. In my mind, when they spoke of Kratos being joined by someone else, nobody fit that description better than Black Mirror, especially with how much they both opposed us. And the worst part was, it didn't matter if we had 1 million men covering our northern flank. Black Mirror and Sparta would be able to easily link up before the fight, and we would find ourselves horribly outnumbered. And so, faced with this situation, our best option was to do the unexpected. We had just enough time before the fight with Kratos to mount a lightning-fast raid against Black Mirror and wipe them out. Having gotten a decent look at their base and the surroundings when I went to their masquerade, I already had a little plan in mind. You see, our army was made up basically of 3 elements. First, we had those mounted on what were called DPS tames, primarily Rexes and Aloes. Good damage, good health, and while certainly able to hold their ground in a fight, they weren't particularly fast, but they were absolutely the building block of our army. Next, we had our special tames. In our case, this was our 2 Reapers. With each one able to hold their own against 3 or 4 Rexes, if used correctly, they could absolutely turn the tide of battle. And finally, we had something resembling cavalry in our army, comprised primarily by woolly rhinos and roll rats. Although they struggle in an extended melee, on the charge, their damage is completely unmatched. And so, with this army, we would march down from the northeast, taking great efforts to remain undetected. Once everybody was formed up, we began our assault against them.
Okay, let's fucking go. On me.
Moving through their base, my guys began encountering the enemy. For now, I told them to simply ignore them and to continue pushing west. You see, I had a very different plan in mind. With our attack having taken them completely by surprise, they were unable to react in time before we reached their western base.
Alright, start meat running everything. Guys, Masaka Thagamize, help on rally now.
A few of them tried to make a stand at the manor, but quickly found themselves overwhelmed. And as for those trying to hide inside, our Reapers were able to jump over the walls and make sure they couldn't hide this out.
Is anyone hurt?
Nope. I'm like full HP.
With a decent chunk of their team now dead, and those that were left in complete disarray, they naturally fled to the citadel of their base. Everything was going according to plan. Because you see, the area they had all decided to take shelter in was completely surrounded by water. And so while they desperately tried to regroup, if they were pushed off this position and were forced to flee over the cliffs, they would get massively slowed down by the water and be easy pickings. And so I formed everybody up on the second base and gave my signal to land the killing blow.
Okay, alright, go, now, through the gate. Go, 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 storm in!
They're all jumping out the back. They're all jumping.
The enemy had immediately routed. Jumping off the cliffs, it was now simply a matter of picking them off.
It's going on. I'm on a wild, but these are good levels.
No, get away, no, fuck it. They have a Zypack.
Oh wait, there's people hiding here.
Can I, yo.
Another guy trapped.
I got this guy. I got the.
He's dead. I got him. He's down.
The battle, if this even could be considered a battle, had been won. Blackmere was totally and utterly annihilated, with nothing left but a few survivors that had managed to escape. And in the process, we hadn't even lost a single guy. Our only casualty was someone's Rex, which we had a couple spares for back at base. We didn't exactly have time to rest on our laurels, but I did manage to sneak in a little bit of time sitting on their leader's throne, the same one that he'd been lording down on me from in the masquerade. Having removed any possibility whatsoever that Sparta would be reinforced by another team, we had just enough time to march to the prearranged battle site and begin preparing ourselves. We started out by first clearing the field of any trees and rocks, and you'll see why in just a moment. Because the terrain the Spartans would be passing through would be so mountainous, it was very easy to predict that they would be coming down this pass. And with this in mind, I formed my plan. I would lead the bulk of the army in a long, thin line, with our backs to a cliff. As the Spartans came down from the cliff, we would advance forward slowly, forcing the Spartans out into the open field. From there, on my signal, the cavalry would come charging in through the sides. On incredibly flat ground and with no rocks or trees, this charge should be devastating. Then, emerging from a hiding spot high up behind us on a cliff, the Reapers would use their exceptionally high jump to simply go straight over us and the enemy, landing in their rear. Completely surrounded and quickly losing men, we would then give an offer for the Spartans to simply surrender. Because you see, I kind of liked them. Sure, they were proving to be the most ostentatious of our enemies, but frankly, in a way that you couldn't help but respect. Kratos had gone right up to me and told me he wouldn't pay tribute. It was hard not to like him for that. And also, what better way to show the inevitability of our victory than to keep our greatest enemy around as a vassal state? I had even gone through the effort of writing out the message that I would spam in local chat before the battle even began. Frankly, I was so confident of victory that I borrowed another ancient Greek custom and built a trapeion, essentially a memorial to my victory, before the battle had even taken place. You know, just don't mind the fact that I forgot the H in triumph somehow. At any rate, as Kratos came down the mountain pass, I spoke with him once more and offered for him to surrender, honestly kind of hoping he would take it, but unfortunately it was not to be. And so I returned to my lines and prepared to lead my men into victory once more.
The battle commence! Forward! Alright, roll rats now. Roll rats now. They're a little forward on attack bank. Reapers, jump up behind them.
Argus going, guys?
Yeah, try not to kill too many of them. Don't kill him.
The Spartans had almost all had their tames killed under them. I spammed local chat with the messages telling them to surrender, but they attempted to continue the fight on foot. However, I simply couldn't bring myself to have the rest of them killed, and so I gave the order to take them in alive.
Take him alive, take him alive.
Can't move right now.
Is this Kratos?
No, this is, okay, He's out.
And just like that, the battle was over. This time we hadn't even lost anything at all. Although the majority of the Spartans had been wiped out, we'd taken a good number prisoner, including Kratos and his co-leader Merrick, so I ended up having to build a couple cells to hold them while we figured out what would happen with them. As good as we seemed to be at fighting, our prisoner handling skills certainly needed some work, because one guy got put in a cage, didn't have any of his weapons or armor taken off him, and ended up waking up, so he just huddled up in a corner and started slicing at whoever went near him. Seeing that there was the very real possibility that he might kill one of us, I decided to take a different approach to recapturing him.
All in. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, okay.
Alright,
nice.
Now take him alive.
This time, I personally made sure he had no weapons on him. With the Spartans now actually captured, now giving me a chance to go up to Kratos and strike a deal. In exchange for peace, and all of his members being released, the Spartans would become a vassal state, once again joining the Delian League. As part of this, they would have another Athenian instituted as co-leader. Recognizing their current plight from having many of their members killed in this fight, I chose to have somebody known as Ozzy serve as co-leader to the Spartans. She was one of the more productive members of Athens, so under her guidance, the Spartans would have a far easier time rebuilding. Considering how eager Kratos had been for war, frankly, these were pretty generous terms. terms. And so, he agreed. Kratos and his whole tribe were released, and despite a little bit of an awkward moment where some of their dead tribe mates were roasting over a fire, I was able to address Kratos once more, except now, not as an enemy, but a friend. And frankly, I think an Athenian uniform looks much better on him anyway. Having concluded this business, and having completed 2 great battles in one day. We bid Kratos, as well as all the Spartans, and now Ozzy, farewell, and made our way back to Athens, where we began making our next plans. Over the course of day 5, in truth, very little happened. After a hectic day 4, we had to spend the day repairing and recuperating. The only meeting I had of note was with Farkesh, and that was just us reaffirming our secret alliance between Athens and the Octan conglomeration. And as the day drew to a close, we assessed the situation before us. Our dominion had massively grown. With the elimination of Blackamere, our control stretched much further south, and with Sparta being made into a vassal state, we controlled practically the entirety of this right continent. Not to mention that our outsized influence now meant that nobody dared go to the lands north of us. So far, I was doing a damn good job of being a villain. But the problem was, in effect, there were really only 2 days remaining, and frankly, outside of our little subplot, very little had actually happened. As far as we knew, the only other major action had been a border war between Secular Front and Phiomia farmers. That somehow the much larger Secular Front had managed to lose and find themselves exiled. But outside of that, mostly nothing. And so, with so many loose ends and so little time remaining, I planned what would later be coined as the Great Journey. Basically, starting to the northeast of us, we would move in a counterclockwise motion across the map, gathering tribute from all those that remained. Once this was done, our dominion over the map would be complete. Now again, owing to the more roleplay focused nature of this event, I went and spoke with the small news team to have an article published and delivered to everyone where I would make my intentions very clear. I named every group that was still outstanding in their payment of tribute. And I of course took great steps to explain to the Octan conglomeration that I didn't truly expect anything from them, and that their name had simply been placed here to keep our alliance secret. And so we made preparations to set out for this great journey on day 6. All these loose ends would get wrapped up, one way or another. At the start of day 6, Athens was already prepared for the great journey, and so, very quickly, we bid our city farewell for what we realized could possibly be the last time, and boarded rafts and began sailing. Our first port of call would be to the Bog Reapers, that strange spider-worshipping cult. But see, with them, we wouldn't exactly be asking for tribute. The historian had requested that I simply wipe them out. A friend of his had been captured and fed alive to their strange spider gods. Feeling that I owed a debt to him because of the warning I'd been given regarding Sparta, I was more than happy to oblige him. Arriving off the coast of Bog Reaper's wretched little island, I joined their VC and demanded that the Bog Reapers surrender themselves into my custody for the murder of the historian's friend, the whole time just praying that they would refuse. And in this regard, they did not disappoint. So, it was time to put these freaks down.
I spoke with them, they refused. Activate slime out mode. Slime them all!
As soon as we set foot on their island, they began fleeing. Searching around, we eventually managed to find their base, set up in a cramped cave system. Needing these fuckers dead, we went straight in.
She does like cave.
You know, I never really understood people who were claustrophobic until this moment. Barely able to fit my Rex in and unable to see anything as my camera pushed up against the cave wall, I could kind of relate now. The only saving grace was the fact that we faced very little resistance. We were able to keep pushing into the cave, discovering room after room. Pretty quickly, I had come up with the nickname of the Nutty Putty Raid, because it honestly felt like at any moment we would just get stuck in here. However, we were able to keep pushing through and sweep bog reapers aside. Reaching towards the end of the cave, me and a couple of my men had discovered a prison.
Tribal fucking prison, look at this!
Inside which were housed multiple people who were going to be sacrificed to their spider god. Unfortunately, everyone in here had been put to death just as this raid had begun. Exiting this pretty solemn building, when we came across the Bog Reaper's main base, we weren't exactly in a merciful mood.
Attacking the battle of the sea. Where's the battle?
With this done, we got out of the cave as quickly as we could and took a nice breath of fresh air. The raid had been a success. Because of the cave's confusing nature, we'd only been able to catch and kill a few of them before they managed to escape, but as a team, they were now completely destitute. And so, the survivors of this brutal raid were left with only one desire: to see Athens destroyed. Too few in number and in strength to do it themselves, they conducted one final dark ritual, sacrificing themselves to their beloved spider god, and in return, asking only that we should suffer a horrible fate. And thus, the Bog Reapers were a team no more. Frankly, we done a service to the whole server by wiping these guys out. Like, I know I'm the villain, but compared to guys feeding people alive to spiders, I look like a fucking saint. With our debt to the Historian now paid, we set sail for the next leg of our journey, where we would visit the Phiomia farmers and exact tribute. Sailing near their base, we disembarked and continued the rest of the journey on foot.
Within render of them, like just having
Along the way, we passed through a field of bones. How incredibly ominous. Passing through these, we were soon brought to the footsteps of the Phiomia farmers' base, another tribe that had made its home within a cave, this time with a pretty nice looking village on the outside. Seeing my army and all of its great number gathered outside, the leaders of Phiomia farmers very quickly came to speak with me. Explaining the purpose of my visit, for tribute, I only asked to have half their Phiomias. Since they only had 12, in effect, all I was asking for was 6 Phiomias. As one of the easiest creatures to tame in this entire game, it would probably only take a single person about 20 minutes to tame 6 of these. So more than anything, this was just a symbolic gesture. The leaders of the Phiomia farmers asked me time to think this over. Not trying to be an asshole, I agreed. And so they went back into their cave system, and we were left outside waiting and waiting some more. Eventually, after probably about 15 minutes, he came out to tell me that he refused. And these guys had never intended to think it over. They had very clearly just been buying time. And so, with my offer of 6 Phiomias, a very trivial amount refused, we were left with no option but to begin our attack against them.
Bert, on top, Bert.
Okay, slam that. Oh, he's parachuting to the front. Don't let him get in, don't let him get in. Microraptor's dead. I think he's dead.
As soon as the raid had begun, we'd managed to catch a couple of them outside, with these players being easily killed. With that done and the outside quickly secured, we were able to turn our attention to the cave. We had completely destroyed the guardhouse and even caught one of their members in it, killing him almost instantly. With this structure destroyed, we were now able to look inside the cave, and what I saw was horrific. Seeing what was in front of me, I now absolutely understood why Secular Front had lost. Based inside a cave with an incredibly narrow choke point, Phiomia farmers had used their 2 special tame slots on golems. Now, if our Reapers were strong enough to face maybe 4 Rexes on their own, a single one of these golems, because they have literally 95% damage reduction, on open ground could easily beat 15 of our Rexes. And on a tight choke point like this, We could throw our whole army at a single golem and probably not even get through. And they've got 2 of these fucking things. And so, with Thylos being heavily nerfed in this event, our only option was to use Carnos, the smallest and weakest tames we had in our whole army. However, their right-click attack has a bleed effect, making the enemy lose 5% of their HP over 10 seconds. And since this is percentage-based, that's the only way we can do damage to these golems. We had to somehow find a way to take these tiny little Carnos, inflict 200 seconds worth of bleeding, all without somehow being squashed by them, and making sure they had no time to heal. Not exactly a great prospect. To make things even worse, their cave was bristling with velos, basically a living turret that shoots quills into whatever enemy's next to it. Oh, and just for good measure, they had a couple spiders hanging from the ceiling to drop down on us. This was going to be a very difficult attack. However, I trusted in the competency of my men. I knew that if we took this slow and steady, we'd eventually be able to just whittle them down.
Fox is bleeding it, Fox is bleeding it. Or Fox, come back. Mateus, can you try to C-spin it? Yes, nice. Another Rex coming.
Phiomia farmers had quickly lost control of the mouth of the cave and were forced to pull back. We'd even managed to kill a Rex or 2 in the process. However, they now simply placed their rock golems at the tightest choke point in the cave and began spamming the attack button. Turned around backwards, there wasn't even any hope of us being able to snipe out the riders. And so, it was time for the riskiest operation of all, bringing Carnos up to bleed them. I gathered volunteers for this, and seeing as this was by far the most dangerous task, it was only fitting that their leader should join them. I hopped on Carno and began preparing myself. If we sat in place and tried to bleed them out, we'd be killed almost instantly. Incredibly exposed on our Carnos, we'd have to constantly stay on the move. Now ready? We pushed in.
Let me push in while they do this.
Yeah, they're just...
This base was proving incredibly difficult to attack. In fact, we'd already taken a casualty. One of the Eupatrides, Lou, had been struck by a boulder and killed instantly. Despite this, we were still making steady progress into their base, even if very slowly. We'd already besieged them for about 30 minutes, and it was still going to be a while longer before we were done. That was until I received some very bad news. You see, our cavalry was nearly useless in a fight like this, so they had instead been used as a scouting force to keep an eye on everything nearby. And one of these guys had just spotted seeing a force of Japanese to our east. So far from base and in such great number, there could be no doubt of their intention. This force had been sent here to break the siege. Immediately I saw the dilemma before me. If we stayed put and continued fighting as we were, the enemies would maneuver behind us, we'd be surrounded on both sides and quickly killed. I knew there was only one thing to be done. We had to immediately break off the siege, gather our forces, and push towards the Japanese as fast as we possibly could. With any luck, the Phiomia farmers won't realize we've pulled back until it was too late. This would then allow us just enough time to rush down the Japanese, kill them as quickly as we possibly could, and turn around just in time to kill the Phiomia farmers chasing us down. This would all be incredibly risky. If we failed to pull this off, we would undoubtedly be surrounded. But with no other possible option, I gave the order to pull up stakes and begin pushing towards the Japanese as fast as we possibly could. Turning around such a large army so quickly was no easy feat. All the meanwhile, my scouts kept giving me bad news.
They just ferried a Reaper. They have a Reaper.
Fuck, okay.
Every second longer it took, the enemies would only get stronger. However, my army was well disciplined. Before long, we were marching on the Japanese.
Let's fucking go then.
Spotting the Japanese, our entire army formed up. With all of us in position, it was time to attack.
It's now or never, guys. We fucking push them and break them, and then we fucking get these other guys. On me, let's go.
You can jump.
Yes,
you can jump.
Reaper.
Acro stuck. Focus acro. Acro dead.
Our attack had thrown the Japanese into complete disarray. We pressed our advantage.
Roll on ping.
Kill him right now. Leave it alone.
The rock column is by the water.
The Japanese had been totally annihilated. Everything was going according to plan. We had just enough time to turn around and face the Phiomia farmers.
I'm on it. I'm on him right now.
Okay, everyone try to ignore the rock golem that's not a bleeder as much as you can. Focus on the other shit. Keep bleeding that thing, Brother Box. Keep bleeding.
Countless of the enemy fell before us, but countless more just seemed to take their place. We fought on.
Moving, guys.
I crashed. It's over.
2 more Reapers?
There's a shit ton of Rexes.
Pig is running out of meat.
Yeah, we got more coming.
Something was horribly wrong here. We'd already killed about 10 of them. There shouldn't be this many left. We were now completely outnumbered.
Reaper up your ass.
I have bleed, I can't move. I have bleed, I can't move. I can't.
Eventually, we started suffering casualties.
Rock home here. Guys, we need help on Cougar. Can we get a C-spin over here? Anyone?
The battle was absolutely turning against us.
Just C-spin them off him. They're fucking targeting. Good.
Abe, I need heals bad.
I can't help you. The pig completely jumped.
There could be no doubt, defeat was looming. Looking over the field, I could see how horrifically outnumbered we were, no longer even able to form a battle line. And so, I gave the order that every commander dreads issuing.
I think this might be an every man for themselves type situation, guys.
Everyone's only responsibility was now trying to get themselves out alive, and finding myself far from the rest of my team, this was something I was going to find incredibly difficult. Seeing that my Rex was done for, my only choice was to go on foot and pray that I would make it out alive. Passing by countless bodies, both friend and foe, I tried to get to the only bit of safety remaining. Being saved in the last moment by one of my Reapers, I had no choice but to just keep running. Once far enough from the battle, I stripped off my ostentatious clothing and got away as far as I possibly could. Despite our incredibly strong performance, the battle had been lost. Though in the current confusion, we still had no idea why. Once I had covered enough distance, one of our number was able to pick me up with a pterodon and bring me back to base, from where I was greeted by the few survivors of that horrific battle that still remained. Although there was still a good number of us remaining, it was clear to me, and everyone else on the server, that Athens was done for. As day 6 drew to a close, I watched the sun very literally set on Athens. As day 7 began, we assessed our situation and the previous battle that had taken place. Although we had managed to inflict more than double the casualties we had suffered, that doesn't exactly matter when you're outnumbered 3-1. Because what had happened was, as soon as news had spread across the entire server that we were besieging Phiomia farmers, Chernist of the Golden Order took this opportunity to betray us. Chernist had first started off by having Drax, my personal envoy in their tribe, knocked out and handcuffed. He was then told he would either join their little rebellion or be killed. Loyal even in the face of death, commendably, Drax refused them. However, unable to bring themselves to kill him, they simply kept him captured, and because of the roleplay nature of the event, he was unable to warn me of their treachery. Then, Chernus spoke with every tribe on the server and united all of them into a giant coalition against us. That's why it felt like there was too many people when we were fighting the Phiomia farmers, because at that point we were fighting almost the entire server. But had we only been outnumbered 3-1, I think there was a chance we could have won. What really sealed our fate was the fact that because there was 6 tribes participating in that fight, they had 12 special tame slots to our 2. We had played that situation pretty much perfectly, counterattacking the enemy before they were even able to amass forces. But there had simply been too many of them. I should have fucking killed Chernist and then his whole team when I had the chance. But instead, I'd shown them mercy, and this was how I was repaid, with the entire server united against me, and with half my team dead in some far-off bone field. And alongside them were all of our best tames, including one of our Reapers. Only 10 of us now remain. Victory in such a situation was well and truly impossible. Even the Spartans, seeing the way the tide was turning, were sure to go against me. And so now, it was no longer a question of if, but how I would die. But if these fuckers in their little post-battle meeting were expecting me to go quietly and simply be smothered by their overwhelming numbers, they were sorely mistaken. I was gonna make these fuckers pay with blood. You see, there was still one team that hadn't turned against me, the Octan conglomeration. We had kept our treaty so secret that the coalition had admitted them into their ranks. You can literally see Farkesh as part of the post-battle meeting, and despite how easy it would have been to betray me, he still stood by my side. And so the plan was set. We would abandon the Acropolis of Athens, for in truth it wasn't a great defensive position, and we would set sail to the Octan conglomeration, where we would tribe up and make our last stand. We were gonna take as many of these fuckers down with us as we could, and so we bid goodbye to our homeland for what we were now certain would be the last time, and set sail to join with Octan. As we were sailing, I received the news that every other tribe in the server had joined up with the Golden Order and now adopted the new name of the Golden Empire. And here I was thinking we were meant to be the villains. Arriving at the shores of their island, the Octan conglomeration bid us forth. We met with them and tribed up. Not too long ago, I had been nearly king of the entire world, and all it had taken was one perfectly timed knife in the back, and I had lost it all. Meeting my new Octan comrades in arms, I looked around at the base that would be our graves. Set up on basically an archipelago of 4 islands, each with small bridges between them, the Octan conglomeration had set up their main base high upon a cliff, with multiple large sets of gates at choke points. With there being a good number of us, this was a pretty defensible position. However, the newly formed Golden Empire, which would soon be to the east of us on the shores of the mainland, would once again have us hopelessly outnumbered. But worse than that was their golems, which were practically unstoppable. With their wide selection of special tames, we would be hopelessly outclassed, especially now that we were only down to a single Reaper. And although we now had 2 Acros thanks to the Octan conglomeration, these were by far the weakest of the special tames, worth maybe only 2 Rexes each. Additionally, we had a small auxiliary force of a few secular front members mounted on aquatic tames, which would act as essentially skirmishers, harassing the Golden Empire as they moved through the water. And so, as we waited for the Golden Empire to herd all of their masses here and prepare for an attack, I remembered one of my favorite stories from antiquity. It was of a man known as Gaius Pontius, a general of a Samnite army, an ancient Italian civilization often at war with Rome, and Pontius had managed a great trick, capturing an entire Roman army in a small pass known as the Caudine Forks. By having both sides of the pass reinforced as the Romans were passing through, the Romans were left with no option but to simply surrender. He had managed to essentially capture all of them without a single drop of blood being spilt. Unsure of what to do with the captured Romans, he sent a messenger to ask the opinion of his father, a well-respected general. The messenger came back the next day, and his father had instructed Pontius to release all the Romans and see them safely back home. Greatly confused by this, he sent the messenger back to ask his father again. This time, the next day when the messenger returned, Pontius's father had said to simply kill all the Romans where they stood. Now more confused than ever, Pontius instructed the messenger to bring his father. But because of his father's old age, it would take him too long to get here. Pontius had to make a decision of his own, not seeing the sense in releasing his civilization's greatest enemy, but also seeking to avoid bloodshed. He decided to take a middle route, essentially forcing the Roman army through a humiliation ritual known as passing under the yoke, and forcing them to promise to never march against the Samnites ever again. As this was wrapping up, Pontius's father arrived. He told his son that he had made a great mistake. See, he had first told his son to release the Romans because it would have been best to be their friends. If this couldn't be done, the next best option was simply to have them killed. By taking the middle route, he had humiliated and angered the Romans, but not made them any weaker. And he was right. Next campaigning season, the Romans once again marched against the Samnites and won crushing victories against them, with Gaius Pontius and his father dying in these wars. And on the clifftop, as I waited the arrival of Golden Order, I realized that I too had made the exact same mistakes. Like Pontius, I had taken the middle route, and been destroyed for it. Sometimes I made neutral decisions, like vassalizing the Golden Order when I could have befriended them or killed them outright. Sometimes I made cruel decisions, like wiping out the entirety of Blackmere. And other times I made kind decisions, like trying to save as many of the Spartans as we could. And in the end, all that earned me was my death. Had I been nothing but merciful, Golden Order wouldn't have backstabbed me by forming a giant coalition against me, and thus been able to collect tribute and lord over the server in that way, but also, I could have been extraordinarily cruel. Had I simply wiped out the Golden Order, that too would have stopped them from forming a coalition, leaving nobody to stop me. But, just like Pontius, I'd made the decision to go down the middle route, and here's where it led me. Thus was the tragedy of Albertocles. Or who knows, maybe the spider god had listened to bog reapers when they all sacrificed themselves. I mean, things did go to shit for us basically right after that, so who's to say? It was too late to make kind or cruel decisions now. The only decision that remained was exactly how many of these fuckers were gonna go in the grave with me. And so, as we received news that the Golden Empire was amassing forces to our east, we gathered all around the cliffs and prepared. It was time to make our last stand. Before long, some of them trickled within view, riding Spinos in the water. Our secular front auxiliaries immediately moved forward to slow them down, and from the cliff we formed a firing line and gave them hell.
I killed one.
Through attacks by our Tusos and sustained sniper fire, we had managed to kill a good number of Spinos and their riders. However, the secular front was left too battered to continue. They'd no longer be able to help us. And so now we stood alone on our island, against practically everybody else. They next attempted to move a pair of rock golems forward using rafts. They had come under withering fire, and the raft had been forced to ditch the golems in a cliff under our base, where they were essentially trapped. We continued trying to get an angle on them, but we had no luck. But eventually, we spotted the raft that had been sent to evacuate them. Now was our chance.
Don't rush this.
Hit one.
Flag's broken, Evan.
Okay, chest broken on the right.
Hitting the cliff.
He's dead.
We'd successfully managed to snipe and kill at least one of them as they were retreating. This was proving to be a very costly attack on us indeed. However, we simply didn't have enough people to cover every beachhead. A different pair of golems was able to make a landing on the northernmost island. I was told they had already begun breaking down the gate, and so I rallied everybody I possibly could to turn around and begin pushing in that direction. These two golems were by themselves. If we ever stood a chance against them, it was right fucking now. Arriving at the gates being destroyed, I waited for everybody to form up and then gave the signal to attack.
Okay, let's go.
One of our guys had stepped in a bear trap. I immediately pushed forward to protect him.
Alright, get up here, start bleeding them.
With our member free from the bear trap, the Carnos moved forward. All the meanwhile, I did everything I possibly could to keep the golems distracted, and our Reaper kept using its special attack against them.
Stick in, Jim. Once they're bled, back out. Don't get yourself killed.
You out. Job made.
I'm hitting them with right click so they can't.
I'm kind of tanking right now. I can't see this much longer, though. Jimmy, can we keep bleeding or what?
I'm real low.
Even completely by themselves, there was nothing we could do against these golems. I was low, and our two Carnos were now low, and so I ordered us to fall back. We had a Daedon for healing not far away. If we could get behind the gates, that would give us some breathing room to heal back up, and so we pulled back.
Alright, we need to fall back. Fall back to the next set of gates and let's heal.
Turning around for but a second, I saw that the rest of the Golden Empire masses had joined these golems. There could now no longer be any doubt that the end of Albertocles drew incredibly near, but I wasn't gonna fucking go easy. We fell back behind another gate, and everyone began healing around the Daedon, managing to get a decent amount of HP in, but the gates couldn't hold the golems for long at all.
They're busting through the gate.
We held the line for a while, even managing to kill a few, but there was simply too many of them. Our line had been completely broken. Seeing this, I organized another retreat. Once again, we managed an organized retreat and began falling back behind far more gates. I was hoping this would buy us enough time to heal once more, but it was not to be. The golems were able to break the gates almost as quickly as we could close them. It only took them about 2 hits. And so, to give us as much time to recover as possible, I ordered that we should all retreat to the very citadel of the base, passing through so many gates in the process. This allowed us some time to regroup at the citadel, but it wasn't long before the Golden Empire arrived.
I'm sworn.
This time they had learned their lesson, using their golems to advance first. And these weren't even the ones we had damaged before. It didn't take long until we were completely and utterly overrun.
Jimmy, I'll try to hold these Rexes off you. You just fucking try to get the golem.
Rexes died to the left and to the right of me, and eventually so did my own.
It's over, dude. I'm dead.
But I wasn't fucking done just yet. I had one last trick under my sleeve. I ordered everyone to abandon their tames and follow my lead. Parachuting off the side, we would be able to retreat to an area that they hadn't yet breached into. Better yet, there were still even tames left there. I told you I'm taking as many of these fuckers as I can with me. Landing, I used a Deodon to get around before managing to hop on a Rex and regroup with the few of us that remained. There'd be no more retreating. This was all that was left. Come and fucking get us.
Reapers are running. Oh, they're so...
I killed him.
Nice, nice, nice.
The first enemies that had come in contact with us had routed. We'd even killed a few of them. And so they fled back and waited around for their golems to pull up. Seeing these approach, I knew it was the end. Let's give them one last show.
Dismounted Rex, Rex dismounted. Ping. He's dead. I'll get him off you, Drax. You're good, I gave you some room.
Thank you.
Keep bleeding him, Box.
Oh, our Reaper's dead. Our Reaper's dead.
Fuck, dude, it's over.
Yeah, no stamina.
I need stamina.
Surrounded, yeah.
With my Rex killed underneath me, it was over. So let's show these fucks how an Athenian dies. And thus was the death of Albertocles. I had come so close to controlling it all, only to end up dead in the mud of some far-off island. All because I'd shown my enemies mercy. Next time, I won't make that mistake. Thank you to Mr. Smart Guy for